You've probably heard it your whole life. Work hard, save money, be disciplined, and one day you will own a home. It sounds simple, logical, almost like a universal rule that has always worked. Maybe your parents told you this. Maybe your grandparents lived it. And for them, it was real. It was achievable. It was normal. But today, something feels deeply different. You can work full-time, you can be responsible, you can avoid unnecessary spending, and still feel like you are standing still while everything around you is moving forward without you. You open your phone, you look at house prices, and suddenly it feels like those numbers don't belong to your reality anymore. And that's where the confusion begins. Because it's not just about things being expensive. It's about feeling like no matter how hard you try, the goal keeps moving further away. Like you are chasing something that is constantly escaping you. And at that moment, a new question appears. Not, can I buy a house? But what actually happened to the system? There was a time in the United States when owning a home was not a luxury, not a dream, but a normal step in life. A single income could support a household. A family could plan, save, and realistically expect to buy a home within a reasonable time. Back then, houses were not seen as financial weapons or profit machines. They were simply places to live. Places where children grew up, where memories were created, where stability existed. Neighborhoods were built for people, not for speculation. But when you look at that reality today, it feels almost unreal. Almost like a different world with different rules. Because the system that made that possible no longer exists in the same way. And that's where the shift begins. Not suddenly, but slowly, quietly, until one day, everything feels different. At some point, people began to notice something important. Houses were not just stable, they were increasing in value. Slowly at first, then faster. And that changed the way people thought. A house was no longer just a place to live. It became something you could use to build wealth, something you could hold, sell, and profit from. And once that idea entered the system, everything started to transform. Because when something becomes an investment, the goal changes. It is no longer about providing shelter. It becomes about maximizing returns. And when millions of people adopt that mindset, the entire system shifts. Homes stopped being homes and became financial instruments. Today, the numbers are clear, and they tell a powerful story. House prices have increased dramatically over the years. In many parts of the United States, homes now cost 5, 6, even 8 times the average income. But salaries did not follow that same path. They increased slowly, sometimes barely at all. And that creates something dangerous, a growing gap between what people earn and what they need to survive. This gap is not always visible at first, but over time, it becomes impossible to ignore. People feel like they are doing everything right, but still falling behind. And that feeling is not an illusion. It is the result of a system that is slowly moving out of reach. In a normal market, when people cannot afford something, demand decreases and prices adjust downward. That is basic economic logic. But housing does not behave like a normal market anymore. Even when fewer people can afford to buy, prices remain high. Sometimes they even continue to rise. This creates confusion, because the rules people learned no longer apply. And when rules don't apply, it means something deeper is controlling the system. And that is when people start to realize, this is not just a market problem. It is a structural transformation. One of the biggest reasons behind this crisis is something simple but powerful. There are not enough homes. After the 2008 financial crisis, construction slowed down significantly. Builders became cautious. Projects were delayed, canceled, or never started, and for years, the number of homes built was lower than what was needed. This created a shortage, and the problem with shortages is that they don't disappear quickly. They stay, they accumulate, and they push prices higher over time. Even today, the market is still trying to recover from decisions made years ago. Even when land is available, it is not always used immediately. Some developers choose to wait. They hold land without building anything. Why? Because waiting can be profitable. If prices increase, the value of the land increases too. So instead of building homes for people, they wait for better financial conditions. This is not a technical limitation. It is a strategic decision. And while land sits empty, people continue searching for homes that do not exist. Even when people need housing, and even when land exists, the system itself can prevent new homes from being built. This happens through something called zoning laws. Zoning laws decide what kind of buildings can be constructed in a specific area. In many American cities, large parts of land are reserved only for single-family homes. That means no apartments, no smaller units, no shared housing. At first, this may seem like a way to keep neighborhoods organized, but over time, it creates a serious limitation. Because when population grows, the city cannot adapt quickly. It cannot increase density. It cannot create more housing where people actually want to live. So the result is simple but powerful. Demand increases, but supply stays restricted by rules. And when supply is blocked by the system itself, prices don't just rise, they stay high. When new homes are finally built, something else happens. Developers don't focus on affordability, they focus on profit. Building a luxury home brings more money than building a small, simple house. So naturally, developers choose the option that gives them the highest return. Over time, this changes the entire market. Affordable homes begin to disappear. The small starter homes that once allowed people to enter the market slowly vanish. And without that first step, everything becomes harder. Because if you cannot enter the market at a lower level, you cannot move up later. The ladder disappears, and people are left standing on the ground. The housing market is no longer just a place where families buy homes. It has become a space where powerful financial actors operate. Large investment firms, hedge funds, and real estate corporations are now major players. They have access to capital, speed, and information that regular buyers do not have. They can buy homes in bulk. They can pay in cash. They can move faster than any individual. And when they enter the market, they change the rules completely. Because now, it is not just people competing for homes, it is capital competing for assets. One of the most surprising aspects of this system is that not all homes are actually used for living. Some properties are purchased and left empty. No families, no activity, just walls, waiting. These homes are held as assets. Their purpose is not to provide shelter, but to increase in value over time. And while they sit empty, people are searching for places to live. This creates a strange contradiction. Homes exist, but they are not available, and that deepens the shortage even further. Another transformation is happening quietly but powerfully. Homes are becoming short-term rentals. Platforms like Airbnb have changed the way people use property. Instead of renting long-term to residents, owners can rent by the night to tourists and travelers. This can generate more income, but it also removes homes from the long-term housing market. So once again, supply decreases. And when supply decreases, prices increase. Interest rates play a crucial role in this system. When rates are low, borrowing is easier. Monthly payments are lower. People can afford more expensive homes. But when rates rise, everything changes. Even if the price of a house stays the same, the cost of borrowing increases. Monthly payments become significantly higher, and this creates a new barrier. People are now facing high prices and high borrowing costs at the same time, a double pressure that makes homeownership even more difficult. This leads to one of the most difficult realities for many people. They rent. But because rent is high, they cannot save enough money. Because they cannot save, they cannot afford a down payment. Because they cannot afford a down payment, they cannot buy. And because they cannot buy, they continue renting. This creates a cycle, a closed loop, a trap that is very difficult to escape. Over time, this system creates a division. On one side, people who own homes. Their wealth increases as prices rise. Their assets grow. Their financial position becomes stronger. On the other side, people who do not own homes. They pay rent, they struggle to save, and they fall further behind. And the gap between these two groups continues to grow. This is not just an economic issue, it is a social transformation. You might ask, why doesn't the system change? The answer is complex. A large percentage of people already own homes, and when prices rise, they benefit. Their wealth increases. If prices suddenly fall, they lose value. And because these people vote, influence policy, and hold positions of power, change becomes difficult. The system protects itself, even if it does not work for everyone. So what does the future look like? A world where owning a home is no longer normal, but rare. A world where entire generations rent for life. A world where housing is no longer about living, but about profit. This is not just a possibility, it is already beginning. So here is the truth. You are not lazy. You are not failing. You are not behind. The system changed, and no one told you. But now, you see it. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it.